opened it, we came.
What it do, people? That Guy Ralf, your third favorite YouTuber, with my new video. If you haven't already picked up on what it might be about, that's right, Hellraiser. If you can't tell from the creepy intro that I just gave. Hellraiser Judgement. Before I do so and jump into my review, I want to give you my dad joke. Why can't ghosts have kids? Because they have Halloweenies. They're literally shooting blanks. I was just behind the joke. It's so funny. Anyways, yeah. Back to the review, to the board stuff. I finally got a chance to watch it. As I said in my one video, Know Your YouTuber, Pinhead, Hellraiser is my favorite, I guess you could say, scary person. But Hellraiser 3 was my favorite scary movie. Back in February, they released the Hellraiser Judgement. And the movie came out of nowhere. Like, I didn't even... No, you know what? I'm lying. I did see a couple, like, ideas and pictures and stuff of the upcoming film, but never really, like, kept keeping up with it. So kind of, like, fell west side, like, in the back of my mind. But I finally got to see it the other day after, like, a couple months of watching it. And here's my review. I'm trying to give it. Start off with the rating, and then I'll explain it later. Rating for this movie, 5 out of 10. I know it seems kind of low for somebody who likes Pinhead, but I'm actually going to explain it, why I gave it a 5 out of 10, and likes and dislikes. So start off, the idea of it is pretty much, it follows two cops who are investigating these series of killings that have to do with the 10 Commandments, and they get somebody from another part of, I think, a different detective from a different area to help them with the investigation. And in doing so, they trouble against Pinhead, or Hell Priest, for those who really know the character, and the Cenobites. So it's a different concept. But anyways, so I'm gonna get to more on that on the plot, because it's gonna be spoilers, obviously. But my likes about the movie, one is a lot of fan service to it. I felt like they really tried to capture a lot of original Pinhead stuff that you liked from, like, the older movies and put it in this one. Because let's be serious, guys. If you've seen Revelations, you know how much of a piece of shit that was. And this one was a big relief from that one. And I felt like they really tried to stick with the concept, but they changed it up for fans to enjoy it for today. You know what I mean? But one thing I liked, like, for his fan service, was Heather Langenkamp. I don't know if you remember her from the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, but she actually had, like, a cameo in this one, which it wasn't a huge cameo. She played, like, the landlady for the one person they go to investigate. She had maybe like 3 seconds of screen time, but it's cool that she was in it. You know what I mean? Also, if you've seen the first Hellraiser movie, the first one took place in the house. The same house that was in that movie, I believe, was the same one in this one, Judgment, where the Cenobites are running, like, their whole operation. And which I'm going to get to my next part I liked. The gore. The gore in this movie, off the rip, it was just, like, intense. You know, and you're confused. There was, like, so much going on. And it opens up with, like, the guy getting, like, some note, ends up running to the auditor. You know, all these, he looks like, you could tell he's a Cenobite. He had, like, cuts in his faces and all that. But typically what happens is the person will go in, sit down in his chair, and he would tell of the stories of, like, why he committed whatever sins or crimes. So the auditor is, like, typing it up and says they're going to review it and then determine your fate, and then from there, whatever. So they type it up, it gets printed out, like they have on old school typewriters. Ding, ding, one of those. And in the process, I think they're actually using the person's blood. He gives the papers to this real fat guy who sits down, uses the tears of kids, puts it on the paper, starts eating it. Then out of nowhere, you see him just start throwing everything up into, like, this big hole. It was like, then they had, like, these naked chicks with their titties out. with like some fucked up faces, and they start like touching it, and then they're the jury, and they tell him, oh, he's guilty. So they go back. The guy gets cleansed. He gets licked by like these older, like middle-aged women who went through menopause recently. They're like licking his whole body. Then they spit it. Then there's one big guy with the piggy mask is carrying this like dominatrix type dude with the leather, and he ends up like cutting him up, getting him off. Boom, punishment. But that right there, that gore was like just like the whole idea of it was just crazy. And even like the crimes, the murders that were going on for the Ten Commandments was ridiculous. Like the first scene, it was a chick and her dog was her baby, so he killed the chick and put the dog inside the stomach. It was ridiculous, man. I really appreciated the gore. Like, if you're a horror fan, a lot of horror fans appreciate gore. A lot of blood. I felt like they really bended it with like how much they can do in this movie. I was reading a couple of articles, and they took out some stuff that they felt like was too much. I'm like, man, why didn't you have to do it? You know what I mean? Like, don't hold back. But I guess they didn't want to go for like Human Centipede crazy. They just wanted to do like, this is crazy. What else did I like about it? Oh, the newer Pinhead guy. He wasn't the same as Revelations, but he wasn't the OG Doug Bradley. Shout out to Doug Bradley. But Paul Taylor, his take on Pinhead, I felt like was really good. He was able to keep the same mannerisms as Bradley, but give it his own spin. He had like the superior look. Like, he overseed everything. And I really liked it. I actually liked the way it looked. What else? What else did I like? That was it. Just the gore. Like, the gore alone made me give it like a 5 out of 10. And just typically like fan service. Oh, the other thing of fan service I want to say. You know what? I'm gonna wait till after, because it's actually has to do with what I didn't like. So I'm gonna believe it to that. What I didn't like, the story of it. As I said, it was 2 cops investigating 10 Commandments. It felt like 7, bro. It felt like fucking 7. Like, it seems like, there's this whole pattern. Like, 7 did the 7 deadly sins. If you haven't seen it with Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt, watch it. Great movie. It followed that same concept. But if you guys watch American Horror Story, it was season 5 with the hotel. Same exact setup. Spoiler, as I said before, if I didn't say it, I'm saying it now, spoiler. The main cop who's investigating the whole thing ends up being the guy who was doing the killings, who was doing the commandments. And in American Horror Story season 5, it was the same thing. The cop who was investigating it ended up being the one committing the crimes. So I was just like, they really like just copied it and put it in a Hellraiser movie, slapped his picture on it and called it a Hellraiser movie. I didn't like that. I felt like they should have did something different. Was it a cool concept? Yes, because of the whole like judge, jury, executioner idea. But the whole story in general was just like, meh. The guy was like in war, did a couple tours, and he was like sick in the head. That's why he started just doing all these things. The funny part I found, it was the cop that he was investigating was actually his brother. And come to find out, his brother was sleeping with his wife. I know, crazy. But he ends up being the last commandment that he, thou shalt not cover another man's wife. If I said it wrong, please correct me. But he ended up being the last one. And it was interesting, but it's kind of like very typical. It's too easy of a story. Like, Hellraiser could be much more than that. Now, another thing I didn't like was, as I said, I liked it, Paul Taylor's take on it, but he didn't feel like the original Pinhead. Like, you can tell he really tried to push the mannerism, but the concept behind him was different. Like, Pinhead, or Hellpriest, however you want to, consider him, was more of, in the beginning movies, a person who just loved pain and just he was a voyager for pain, and he would show anybody who opened the box the same pains, like just the whole like torture idea. That's what he loved. This one was more like a means of, for every action there's a reaction. you do bad, you get bad. Like it was for the torture was based off of crimes, and I'm like, that's not really his thing, but I get it. I don't know. It worked well for the movie, but when you consider what you like about Pinhead, it kind of took away a little bit. You can tell, obviously he still enjoyed it, like he just lived for it. But I don't know. Another thing I didn't like, they brought in like this angel who was like the OG angel who ended up doing the Adam and Eve, but she wanted to keep the detective alive because after they found out he was committing crimes, they was gonna punish him for it, but he was more like a means for the man upstairs, if you know what I mean. Pretty much like his killings would balance more people to do good because they're scared of what's gonna happen. Like God would protect them, like that whole concept. Pinhead disagreed, ended up like conning him. The guy ended up getting killed. He ends up killing the angel. Takes like the pins from his head. Like the OG movie. I forgot which one it was. Puts a pin in his head, in her head, like forehead, and then like she does the whole like like the face grab with the chains. She's like stretched out. You know what I'm talking about? Uncle Frank from movie 1. And she even does the famous line that Uncle Frank says before he gets like
Jesus wept.
So they did that, which was cool for the fan service, like I was saying. But after he did that, there was a punishment for his. He was kind of like, well, I'm already punished. What more are you going to do to me? And the auditor tells him, like, yo, you fucked up, bro. You're going to end up being banished, not to a deeper hell, because you're already in hell, but back to Earth. So you see Paul Taylor as human form, like the pain, the suffering. He's like a homeless man in the streets. He's like, and I'm just like, see, now y'all just like fucked up. Like, why would you take away Pinhead? But then there's like an end scene where you can tell the auditor is going to start like really running things. And that kind of relates back to Hellraiser 2 when he, goes back to like human form or whatever. Then, movie 3, which is my favorite, end up having to climb back. But overall, I just felt like the movie lacked in originality. Like they try to take so much concept that it just like mimicked a lot of other things, and they try to take good pieces from the older movies and make it into this one. But that's my overall thought. 5 out of 5. Split in the middle mainly because of the gore. I appreciate the gore. The story was bad. The Pinhead character was cool. The Cenobites are always cool, but it just I liked how they have him orchestrating all the things, but I just didn't like how they ended it off with him too. Like, why would you? Hellraiser was for him. Like, nobody ever calls him Hell Priest. They either call it Pinhead or Hellraiser, but nobody ever says, "Hey, let's see a movie without him that has his title." Kind of like what they did in the other movies. It wasn't originally supposed to be a Hellraiser movie, but they said, "Hey, why not? Just throw him in there." Boom. That's what they did with this one, kind of, sort of. With that being said, that's the end of my review. 5 out of 10. Hellraiser Judgment. Make your own judgment for the movie. Tell me what you guys think of the movie. Tell me what you think of this review. Maybe I might sway you into watching it or not. But this is my first horror review. Man, I can't really see what I'm glad to Jesus Christ. My first horror review. So please let me know what you think. That Guy Ralf, your third favorite YouTuber. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Please share. Road to 100 subs. So please help me out there. Share. Wherever you can. All right? Good night, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Whenever you're watching this, enjoy the rest of your day. Rub your nipples, my friends, and stay sexy. Peace out.